This just in the system is fake and gay and all that. The COVID stimulus bill. Wow. I am actually really grateful, partially for the whole complete bullshit election, combined with Americans actually being a little bit more focused on the legislative process these days, noticing that it's not really a left and right problem, is it? When you look at something that is crucial, it's important, it's a gargantuan bill that is about 99.9% pork barrel spending during a time when everyone's looking very closely at legislation and what politicians are doing. Here you have a bill that frees up like hundreds of billions of dollars, and about 80% of it doesn't go to anywhere in America. Hell, it's not even corporate welfare in America. It's national welfare for other countries, most of which who don't need it. You've probably at least heard of like the gender studies in Pakistan shit. Or you know how we already gave 40 billion to Israel? Well, here's another half a billion to Israel on top of this and that and the other thing. And they don't need that money. There's money to Sudan, there's money to South Africa, there's money everywhere, and it's going everywhere but to you. And keep in mind, here's another thing that Americans tend to never remember. This is not the government's money. The government doesn't make money. The government appropriates your money. And who even on the left is looking for all of this money during an economic depression caused by all these lockdowns that were instituted by this government that is paid for by us, to take all our money, promise to give some of it back because we need it, and then they go, actually, no, we're going to give 4/5 of this money to somebody else who doesn't need it. And it's not even about COVID relief in those countries. It's for bullshit reasons and bullshit causes and bullshit countries that are not you. And keep in mind, this is one of the things I've always said, that, taxation is theft is not just a libertarian motto. It's true. They take without your consent. Your consent is just living here, basically. It's part of the rules of living here in this country that supposedly is a republic of people representing you, but they never represent you, and they always fuck with you. Even if you're left, right, center, doesn't matter. They will always fuck with you. And everyone's always known that these people were beholden to lobbyists, but before this international kind of internet age, the lobbyists at least were local. At least you're being fucked with by tobacco companies or alcohol companies or stock market traders or something. Somebody at least here who was paying into this economy was fucking with you. Everyone in the fucking goddamn Congress right now is owned by like Israel, or they're owned by China, or they're owned by some multinational firm. I mean, Google's technically not an Irish company, aren't they? Because there's all these tax scams where so many of these supposedly American countries aren't actually American countries. They come from Barbados or fucking Russia or fucking somewhere where the tax rate is pretty much fucking nil. And then haven't you heard about how many big giant trader corporations are moving out of New York, which has been completely fucked over by this leftist bullshit, and they're moving to Florida. My state's next. How almost all of California is going, fuck California, we're moving to where we get taxed less, Texas, so we can move there and vote for Texas to become another California and kill it, and then move on again, because liberalism is a parasitic disease, and it's a fatal one. And once it destroys its host, it moves on to another. And this is all just part of a bigger problem, but what I need to get back to is that it's not even people from here benefiting from us getting fucked anymore. That money is leaving this country to the tune of trillions. It's leaving this country to go pay for some other asshole somewhere else that has nothing to do with you, probably hates you in your country. We're giving this money to Iran and Sudan and fucking the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Israel and everyone but you. You're poor. This entire lockdown situation, honestly, is almost certainly an economic takeover. I've talked about it before, the idea of the Great Reset, and what that is they're taking advantage of this COVID situation. Some people say the COVID situation was planned. I'm at least of the position that it is a man-made disease that originated from China. Whether or not the release of it was planned and orchestrated, I don't know. It doesn't have to be. But it's being taken advantage of either way. And the way it's being taken advantage of is everybody who does not have the financial capability to withstand a depression, and especially a lockdown where it's not even that they can only barely compete with the big corps anyways, but they're not allowed to compete. You know, like, this mega gym stays open while the local gym has to be closed. This mega restaurant stays open while your restaurant stays closed. Walmart stays open while the mom and pop grocery store stays closed. And they keep locking shit down over and over again, and they're always lying to you about how long they're going to lock down. 3 weeks to flatten the curve in May. Does anybody remember that? How many lockdowns have we had since then? How much total lockdown time in your state? How fucked are you? How many times do you have Black Lives Matter burning down your street, killing your fellow citizens, committing mass arson, protesting, destroying tons of property, threatening and attacking civilians, not going to jail for it because nobody will press charges on these people. But if you dare protest these governors that are keeping you from working, keeping you from running a business, then you're a terrorist and you go to jail. You open your gym when they tell you not to, you will be fined. You don't pay that fine, you go to jail. Fuck you. The American citizen is not just the enemy of the media at this point. It's the enemy of the legislative government. It's the enemy of the executive government. Your enemies are your governors. Your enemies are your district attorneys. Your enemies are your mayors and your city council people. And they want you to fucking die. And the people who are reaping in mass profits are the people who are taking advantage of the vacuum. While all these local businesses, all these entrepreneurs are getting fucking screwed into bankruptcy, Amazon, Walmart, everybody record profits. This is a financial takeover, and it is deliberate. And under Biden, it will continue unabated. In fact, it will accelerate drastically. There will be no more competitors. And almost all of these corporations that are taking advantage are multinational, and their loyalties are not necessarily to this country at all. Keep in mind that a lot of these multinationals taking advantage of this are Chinese or somewhere European. You are fucked. America is being sold down the river deliberately as quickly as they can do it. This country is being torn apart by people who are deliberately tearing it apart, consciously tearing it apart. And then you look at this bill, and they're not even trying to hide it. They're like, and keep in mind, this bill has been revised. So the state of it, where there's hundreds of billions going to stupid bullshit, and some of it's earmarked for like building the Smithsonian, adding a wing to the Smithsonian for like gay and Latin history and shit. You know, hundreds of millions of dollars. And keep in mind, everyone's getting $600, American citizen. Just take $1 million, divide that by 600, and if there just $1 million wasn't pissed away, how many thousands of people, actual citizens, could have been helped? How much would it help instead if you relaxed or downright lifted the lockdowns because they scientifically do not do a goddamn thing to stop the spread at all? Just like, you know, the amount of misinformation like this, who knows, this might get taken down for misinformation, but I'm going to tell you an actual fact about masks. Masks do not protect you from anything. Do you know how you have a mask protect you? If it's an airtight, sealed, and filtered gas mask, not a little surgeon's mask. You know what the little surgeon's masks are for? Is to take some of the liquid particulate, whatever stuff coming out of your nose and your mouth when you breathe, and putting it into the mask. So it technically, a little, but not a lot, protects others from you. Your mask is not a magical little shield that protects you from anything. It protects you from nothing. Nothing besides extreme hygienic response, you know, hand sanitizer, washing your hands, don't touch things, don't go near people. It's the only thing you do. And guess what? If you go to the store, it doesn't even matter if you're 6 feet away from people. If you're in an enclosed space around people, especially in shit like planes or bus stations or buses or any mass travel, you're exposed. And the good thing is, this disease is no more lethal than a common flu. That's already a statistical fact. So there's not even really any reason to be afraid of it unless you're deathly ill, or if you have an immune deficiency disease like AIDS or something, or cancer. And if you have those things, you should be quarantined. And if you don't have those things, you should not be quarantined. Because the fact of these kinds of diseases, by the way, is the more and more people are exposed, more and more it mutates. And guess what? Everyone's fear-mongering because of this mutation that is less dangerous, but more communicable. That's the same thing with every single pandemic disease, is that the disease is trying to evolve to spread more. And guess what? Killing your host is not a good way to spread. Like the Ebola pandemic that happened a couple of years ago, part of what ended it wasn't, UN response or anything, is that it mutated to be way less lethal so it could spread faster. That's what COVID is doing and will continue to do until we just think of it like it's the common cold or a flu, which is basically what it is. So this not scary disease that we were told to be horrified for a whole year, we got people freaking out thinking that masks are magical talismans and that lockdowns will do anything to stop it. Meanwhile, if you're worried about people dying, if you're worried about people being impoverished, if you're worried about families suffering and the poor suffering, and if you're a bleeding heart liberal, you should be anti-lockdown, because the effects of these lockdowns are exponentially, geometrically fucking worse than the disease itself. Period. That's a fact. So if your reason for being hysterical in supporting this basically hostile takeover of this entire country, and indeed countries of the entire world, while all the money during this period is being sucked out of, the poor to middle class and being gone straight up to the rich, especially you leftists who are helping them do it every step of the way, don't seem to realize that if you're all about the wealth redistribution, especially from the rich down, you should be a little bit worried about all this money going from the lowest levels up. Like a fucking big just vacuum, just pulling it straight out of everyone's hands and into the government, who is raising your taxes to pay for this absurd shit, for this money to go to rich people in other nations. All these nations were like, we're going to have this feminist initiative in this place. So they're not going to fucking do that. They're going to spend 10% of it on those people and pocket the rest of the money. However corrupt you're aware of American politicians being, literally everywhere else, they're worse. In every single... we're the least corrupt country in the world, and we're corrupt as fuck. So imagine what that money's doing elsewhere, especially in the fucking Middle East and Africa. What do you think that money's really fucking doing, you fucking idiot? There's no part of the political compass that should be supporting this process, because it's against the principles of literally everybody. Because everybody is at least trying to stick up in some way for the little guy, and everybody is suspicious of the control of the elites. Nothing in this process is helping anybody but the elites. And no matter if you're the retards on the left who have no idea how anything works and you're a malicious, violent, sadistic fuck, but you think you're pro-worker, versus an actual pro-worker like a libertarian or a primitive conservative or an old school conservative or a Goldwater Republican, all the way up to conservative evangelocons and neoliberals. Nobody wants this, and it's being done without your consent by people who don't even read the bill. But people online already look at it and they pick it apart and they say this thing is a fucking super corrupt travesty, and it gets passed. You got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running around saying this bill is fucking stupid, we weren't given time to read it, and you look at her voting record and she voted yes on it. And you got Nancy Pelosi screaming at Trump for giving everybody $1,200, saying that's nowhere near enough and I'm not going to support this bill. And she co-signed this fucking bill that gives everybody $600. Everybody's a lying fucking fraud up there. Everyone is full of fucking shit, especially guys like Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney. It's not a left-right partisan issue. It's basically that all these people need to be wiped the fuck out, removed from office. And the sad thing is the state of political propaganda and shit means that people worse than them will probably come in. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and their other Justice Democrat ilks are the most corrupt people currently in Congress, that are constantly in embezzlement scandals, and somehow they're never fucking impeached or removed from office from this. Like fucking specifically Ilhan Omar is under investigation for multiple campaign fraud violations. There's pretty much concrete claims that the guy that she left her husband for, this person she eloped with, this person she was having an affair with, who was some sort of advisor of something or other, some sort of fucking advisor to her campaign, embezzled $33 million from her campaign. Nobody's in trouble. Nobody's going to go to jail. Nobody's going to get fined or have to give the money back. None of that's happening. She's been under investigation for 2 fucking years and nothing's happening. These people are untouchable. You're already fucked.